Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of What the Data Says.
Hey, Lottie.
How is everyone today?
What the data says.
Good. All right, there's a lot happening at the moment, so we're going to get straight into it. Firstly, so if you don't know this about our company, we do street interviews where we go into the street and interview people on like topical questions. And recently when we've been getting ideas, we've been seeing that the most like viewed and trending ones are all AI, but like we didn't realize they were AI until we clicked on the video and we were like, wait, what the hell? So I want to talk about that and open a conversation, like, because it's going crazy at the moment, this whole like AI interviews and stuff. What does everyone think?
There's probably like two sides to it. So like the thing that scares me is like some of them I'm obviously like, I don't know that they're AI generated. And I'm like, where do we draw the line on like authentic conversations? Because we've tested it now. And like in order to get the answers, you've got to prompt it and you've got to tell it what to say. So that's like one side of it. So I'm like, that's the scary kind of arm of it. But then like, I feel like it's a really, really good opportunity specifically for brands at the moment to capitalize on it because you can do so much testing with it. So like, for instance, me and Lottie, we go out and we'll ask people, hey, do you want to Vox with us? And like, I would say like 60 to 70% of people say no. Yeah. And then you're also relying, we call it rejection therapy.
Yeah. Great.
It's really good. It really preps you for your weekends if you're single. But no, it goes back to the premise of like, you can do all this testing on the back end and you can make a video in 30 minutes versus going out and having to ask people, get rejected off the back of it. And then also you're so reliant on these people's answers actually being good and hitting well from a marketing perspective that like the whole Vox comes down to their answers. So like the good thing about this is like you test all the questions on it. That's what I would do if I was a brand right now. I'd be opening up one of these accounts. I'd be starting like we're going to start pivotalconversations.ai and just start posting them. Now it does kind of, that's where I get a little bit like skeptical on like the whole thing of like, it's not a genuine conversation. So I think testing it and beta testing it and then taking it out to the real world and actually, because the authentic responses is what makes them so unique. And like, I don't know, that's where my kind of brain's at.
Yeah, but as you were saying before, sometimes we'll spend hours in the city and we'll come back and we'll be like, they were literally the shittest answers. And like, you just know that none of those videos are going to hit. And you're like, fuck.
Deflated as shit.
We spent 5 hours in the city. We got like 2 hot chocolates, walked around, 10K steps done, but like all these answers are terrible.
We got our steps in though.
Sometimes we get stiffies, but then sometimes you get someone really good.
Yeah. But imagine us now posting these AI generated videos on our pivotalconversations.ai account and we're actually getting all the viral questions and then we're going out and taking those to the street. True. That's what I'd be interesting to test. So like reverse engineering it in a way would be like a really good beta testing because even when we're generating questions at the moment, we're really relying on there's 2 factors to it. We're relying on other people's viral questions that have already done really, really well. And then we're like, okay, let's go with that one. Or we're brainstorming and then plugging it into Claude or ChatGPT to then regenerate it into something that's a bit more clickbaity. Now in this case, you can do a test case, post the question, check retention, you can check everything, see where people drop off, and then you can take that.
Well, my question is, why would you do that?
Well, it's the time thing. It goes back to the time thing.
No, but okay, so like let's say you're hitting viral posts. Why would you go back to the street?
Well, my whole thing is like, it's not an actual authentic conversation and I still feel some level of guilt.
No, I totally agree.
I don't know, maybe that's my subconscious, I don't know why that is.
You feel guilt?
I feel guilt.
What are you feel guilty over?
I feel guilty that
it's fake.
It's fake. I'm generating the responses and our whole ethos of our brand. And I feel like the amazing thing about these Vox Pops are that they're authentic and you're learning about people's genuine stories.
You watch a movie though, and you can take lessons from a movie. So what's the difference?
Yeah, no, but the Vox Pops going viral, they're not like educational or emotional. They're all like funny and like stupid.
Yeah, but right now.
Yeah.
But like, there's no reason why you couldn't engineer something like that. My question is not that it's right. I'm just genuinely posing a question. I was like, when you said what you said of the reverse engineering, I'm like, oh, that's really smart. My follow-up question is like, okay, well, what would be the reason to come back to doing it in person?
Well, that's the thing. I think it's too early and maybe it is.
But what's your proxy on that? If it gets views and it gets comments and it gets engagement.
It's not authentic though. And I feel like the power of a vox pop really lies in the authenticity for me.
But
like,
what about when you get to the point where you can't tell the difference, and that's going to come?
Yeah, that's the difference though. We're not there yet. Like it doesn't feel authentic right now with these videos. I can tell that they're AI generated versus not.
Mm.
And that's because their answers are so outlandish, that it just couldn't even like. We spoke about it before. They've generated this old Betty. What's her name? Old Betty character.
So her name's Baddie Betty, and she has 557K on TikTok and like 4 million views. It's crazy. And she's like this full AI generated persona.
And then they've taken that AI generated persona and now they've turned that into like the main character for all these voxes, essentially.
No, for sure. I mean, my kind of, I was like, probably if you 6 months ago I was like anti. I would have said, the question is do you believe that AI content is going to be able to create as much of a connection or have as much influence as regular content? And I would have probably turned around and said, no, I think there's always going to like there's no way, and it's always going to be human led, and you're going to get more, the more that you can differentiate yourself, you're only going to become create more connection. Now I'm like, like from what you're seeing, like VO3 has kind of changed my perception on that, which is the Google model. So it's just like, I think the key, I think what's really interesting here is the fact that how quickly you can move on trends. Like think about how quickly you could create, like every day based on cultural trends and news, you could just be recycling new content for ads. And like you could run on your Meta account, or even just creating content in general. Like just how quickly you can move. Like for you guys, think about it. If there's a newsworthy thing, like even like this podcast, we have to create content that's relevant to news that's been in the last 2 days, which is really hard for us to pull together in a very short period of time. And we've got a very small window. Whereas like if you could AI generate this and it looked real and you couldn't tell the difference, you can just move on it so quickly. And I think where it probably plays a big role is like ads. So I don't know if you guys seen, but there was a dentist, I'm not sure where he was from, but there was a dentist who created the ad with the gorilla vlogging himself bungee jumping. So the gorilla starts off in an airplane drinking beers, pretending to be drunk. And then he parachutes out, and as he hits the ground, he smashes his teeth. You don't see that, but you see him like waking up and he's got no teeth and he's like drunk laughing. And then he's like, oh man. And then it shows him going to the dentist, getting them fixed. And then he's got this new pearly white thing and he's vlogging the whole thing. Went viral. Dentist was booked out months and months and months and months in advance from this one AI ad that just went crazy that he created with VO3. And so it's like, that's not a cultural trend. He was probably like first to market with AI ads, but just like think about all the cultural trends that are happening daily that you could like play on with ads and just recycle that in. And I think it's just going to happen with content in general. The Bad Betty thing though is like, what I'm more interested in is like the level of influence that she has. Yeah. Like, can they launch a product on the back of this and will people buy? And like, it's just like, it comes back to the AI influencer thing for me, like that we talked about in one of our previous episodes of like, back then you think if that was 3 months ago and we all had this conversation like, oh yeah, like we weren't like super bullish on it. And then like 3 months later, that's how quick this space moves. It's like, no, this is a reality and it's happening. And it's real life examples. So it's pretty interesting.
Can I ask you guys a question? Like what happens if you guys had found out in the last year that every piece of content from like an interview perspective was AI generated? How would your like purchasing decisions change?
So I thought about this. Nick Sarayev, I've sent you his content. There was a time where I thought he was AI generated for at least a month. Turns out when I did my research, he's not AI generated. So
she has really good script writers.
But my point is like I was probably like it didn't change the way I interacted with his content. And I think this is something that's really interesting is like I talk about this a lot and I think it applies directly to this, which is like people either find something valuable or they don't. I think once the essence, like you said it before, you feel bad, like once that goes away.
Do you think it would affect your purchasing decisions though?
No, I'm saying I don't think it would.
Yeah,
I think the essence of AI and the fact that people still see it in this evil light is what affects that decision. But the more that becomes normalized, you know, like we're like 2.5 years into the AI era with ChatGPT. Like ChatGPT is such a normalized thing now that like I think inevitably all of this stuff just gets normalized, and then it's hard to imagine a world with like just complete AI influences. But just the reality of that is that's coming, and that's going to come. It's already here, but like that's going to be normal in a year.
See, that personally scares me, like going onto my feed and like the percentage of everything being AI generated is like, say if it's skewed 70% AI generated and 30% human generated, I'm like, I don't know.
No, but I think like we were talking about this today. I think what becomes more prominent in that world as a brand is experiences and in real life experiences.
Yeah.
And even like this idea of like lives, like how do you, in a world where AI generated content is flooding your newsfeed, like as a creator or a brand, how do you stand out and differentiate and more importantly, prove to people that you're not?
Yeah.
And I think it's through live. Like live goes from being a piece of content to an experience that people can interact with. And you're already seeing it with like live shopping in China with TikTok and TikTok Shop and what's happening in the US. And I just think that's going to become a lot more prominent. And then everything else that you do in real life is really going to be the crux of community. Whereas, you know, the previous 5 to 7 years, content was community, where I think that's changing now because of the amount of content that's being generated plus the amount of AI content that's going to be generated. So I think that's something to really pay attention to, and probably if you can get ahead of that now and really start to do a lot of that stuff now, you can get a bit of a head start because the AI content floodgates is going to come. Like it already is. It's like, how many gorilla videos have you seen on TikTok or Instagram of like the vlogging gorilla? Like that comes from one viral ad that a dentist did. Now it's everywhere and it gets views and people engage with it because the scary thing that hit me is like what Lottie said before when we did a filtered search on TikTok. Like if you guys have a phone right now, if you search street interviews right now and you click sort by, what is it? Sort by most liked. Most liked in the last 3 months. I think 60 to 70% of them are AI generated, which is crazy.
I saw this video recently from an Australian creator talking about how a lot of brands in like the product industry like beauty and clothing and stuff, they're putting a lot more funds not in their social strategy but into not having like exclusive events with like influencers and stuff, but like involving like everyone, like having like pop-ups that like everyone who's a customer is welcome to come to. So it's like interesting how like brands are like kind of shifting away from like influencers and like social media and kind of like welcoming people that would normally be on social media into like real life experiences. So I wonder if that's going to become more of a big thing as like this whole AI thing comes.
That's literally what Britt Saunders said like 2 weeks ago. She's like, I'm seeing all these brands bring influencers away. The one thing that I would do if I was going on a brand trip was bring my real raving fans.
100%.
And I'd pick 20 of them, my most loyal customers that have purchased from me from the start. I'd bring them on that trip. And then that creates word. And I was like, that's actually so smart. I've never actually thought about it in that way.
100%.
It's really smart though.
It's just so competitive on social.
Yeah.
And anyone can become a creator and an influencer in the modern day. Like it's like, okay, well, I think, you know, the more and more competitive it gets, the more and more brands are going to look to create deeper connections with their audience and look at how they can do that. So that's where I think that real life experience, with the more real life gets further and further away from us, the more real life experiences are going to become more and more important.
Yeah. On that topic, have you guys seen the recent collab that Binge did with TikTok?
No.
So Binge partnered with TikTok to do a collab to launch their new show, $1 Billion Playground, which is like an Aussie show. But their whole like launch strategy, instead of like paying heaps of money for like advertisement on whatever, instead they just advertised with a bunch of creators on TikTok to like promote it. But pretty much their first episode of the show was live streamed on TikTok, like a full long form of the show, which I think is super interesting how they're using those platforms now, and then obviously hooking people in to then get a subscription on Binge. And the marketing director said that TikTok sits at the center of pop culture and streaming the episode 1 of the show directly on the platform. We're meeting viewers where they are in the formats they love. So it's kind of interesting how they're using that. But what do you guys think about that?
Love it.
Love it?
Love it. Frothing from my coffin. The reason I love it is because like
I just want to know if people like, would you guys even do that? I'd probably just pay for a subscription of Binge if I really wanted to see it.
Yeah,
no,
but I'm thinking of like, so, okay, this is a really good example. Who's the biggest podcaster in the world? That really buff guy.
Joe Rogan.
So he does on YouTube, I got stuck, so I love like true crime. And he actually gets heaps of people that have been involved in like murder cases, mistrials and so forth. Anyway, I was watching one of his, he posts clips on YouTube, but they're only like the first 3 minutes of the episode. And then I was like, because he obviously has that Spotify deal, you have to move to Spotify to watch the whole thing. Anyway, I moved to Spotify. Now I engage with a lot of his content on Spotify because I saw that 1 3-minute clip or 4-minute clip, whatever it is, on YouTube. I've then moved across. So I feel like it's really smart. If you're live streaming and you're, number one, getting it for free and you're incentivized obviously to watch it, or it's free there for you to watch, moving across is compelling.
Yeah, just to add another point, they also said that the new model is part of Binge's broader strategy to innovate how audiences discover original content. So like pretty much all of their marketing funds and advertising went into advertising on TikTok, which is so interesting.
So not every episode will get
just the first.
No, just the first one.
I think
and
it's
they
really
had
smart.
like heaps of paid and creator-led campaigns across TikTok, Meta, Snapchat, and YouTube Shorts. That was all they spent their money on for marketing, which is crazy.
Alright.
I guess that just shows you how pivotal like social media is for advertising now. Like the fact that no one's even using like banners and what do you call them? Like all the street ads and stuff anymore is crazy.
But think about traditional TV outlets.
Yeah.
They spend millions on trailers, spend millions of them to obviously convert them into viewers. Binge is like, fuck that. Let's not spend millions. Let's give out our product for free for 45 minutes on a platform and then we'll convert that way.
No, it's just also where people spend their time. Like how much time do you spend in front of the TV? Like think about the difference between from now to 10 years ago. So like, I don't know about you, but I spend not much time in front of my TV. So, you know, and then depending on who you're targeting, like Gen Z spends most of their time on TikTok. So if you want to get in front of them, distribution it's like, think about a cafe. The tried and tested way of having a successful cafe is to put a cafe in a place where a lot of people go. So it's the same principle now, but it's just cross you know, it's in a different platform obviously, but you know, it's smart. Like you can go directly to the platform, you can work with the platform to get it in front of as many people as possible, and then more importantly, you can wrap around marketing through the form of creators to create awareness around it. So I think I just think it's really, really smart. And I think it just more pushes to the fact that traditional media is dying a slow death, stroke by stroke. And, you know, social media platforms are the new media companies. They are the new media networks. And it's where most people spend their time. So YouTube's the same, you know, like YouTube is now the most consumed form of media on the internet. So, you know, most people will consume all their long form media on YouTube far more than say TV or anything else like that. So, and TikTok's obviously short form and then they're trying to get into long form, but TikTok and YouTube have the most consumption time per user per day by a long shot, you know, in terms of time in the app. So it makes sense to advertise there.
I also find it like interesting that they've chosen the element of live streaming as well, because number one, you can't pause it, you can't rewind it. So like if you're not there, you're going to miss it.
No, but the other side of it is it's about like it's exactly what you said. It's kind of like TikTok's built for scrolling. The way that platform works is they feed you content.
Yeah.
Right. There's a big difference between TikTok and YouTube in terms of how those platforms work, right? So on TikTok, you scroll and that content gets shown to you. You don't get a choice in it. You don't have to click anything, right?
Yeah.
it just comes and they serve you what they think you're going to be
But the
interested
live
in.
stream element is like you're not getting served that.
But that's the
very
YouTube.
different algo.
No, but that's the YouTube thing, right? So
Yeah.
the YouTube thing, you have to click on something. So the reality is the reason live streaming is so valuable is because one, you do have to click into it.
Yeah.
Two, then you're not competing.
Yeah.
Once you click into that live stream, you're not competing with the scroll anymore. So, and that's what it takes for long form. Long form, you can't.
The live stream is still on scroll though on the TikTok app.
Yeah. But it's a different user experience.
Yeah, but it's also weird with the live stream. You don't get targeted. Like it's not like your normal algo. Like I get like peak gamers on my live streams. Like why am I even being
So
targeted
true,
this?
same.
It's so random.
Whenever I click on, I get so scared.
It's probably just because it's new as well. But I know Danny
Yeah.
Rance. Danny Rance is a client of ours. He's been doing live streams on TikTok for like probably 8 months. And he goes like, that is by far the best return on investment he's had in content.
Yeah.
Outside of his podcast in a long time. So he goes like in the early days, he would get like 10,000 people on this live stream.
Oh,
like,
that's crazy.
Crazy because
Yeah.
TikTok are going to push that. It's like any platform. They reward you for the features that you use. So
yeah.
I think lives in general and TikTok Shop and these we haven't experienced it in Australia yet, but like it is huge everywhere else. Like I've been pitched by companies around the world to bring live shopping to our studios. That is how big it is everywhere else except for Australia. We just haven't actually experienced it yet.
Yeah. Okay, wait. I'm going to finish with last topic to discuss. I'm going to start with a question, but I don't want your answer. Actually, I do want your answers, but I just want a yes or no. Okay, so do you need to have a prevalent brand presence to stand out? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, with some context.
Okay.
To my
Now
answer.
I'm going to go through, me and Liv came across this today and we thought it was such a cool story and it would be good to like relate to some questions. So we saw this thing about this man called, God, I'm going to butcher this so badly, Jiro Uno, who is a 99-year-old who runs a 10-seat sushi restaurant inside a Tokyo subway station. There's no menu. It's $300 per plate and getting a seat there's nearly impossible. So he's turned down billionaires, Michelin inspectors, and even Barack Obama, who only got a reservation there because Japan's prime minister booked him a table. So he opened the restaurant at 40 years old and it's like one of the most sought after dining experiences in the world. But anyway, so he arrives there at 5 a.m. every morning and he's been doing it for like 50 years and he has the most like rigorous processes with anyone he trains. So some people he trains spend like 20 years on just cooking rice. Sorry, I think it's 10 years on cooking rice and like 5 years on like
That's
rolling
grim.
sushi. Crazy. But
That's
like
so grim.
his whole premise is like once you decide on your occupation, you must immerse yourself in your work. No distractions, no plan B. So
Perfectionism.
just like
doesn't he?
perfectionism, yeah. And like he has no social media. Like he honestly like has built this just through being like the best in the industry.
So I would argue like if you like a brand presence before the world of social media, like brand is your touch points with customers and what you stand for and when they think of you, what do they think of? And what are the things that they associate with you? So I would say, even this guy, like he doesn't have a social media presence, but he definitely has a brand presence.
Yeah, cool.
I also feel like Jiro, his name's Jiro, yeah?
Jiro, yeah.
He has the privilege, number one, in being in like one of the world's, is it a capital city, Tokyo?
I also wanted to touch on like, would you actually want to be working until you're 99 years old, even if it's like your purpose in life?
Yeah, what else are you going to do?
He's going to say yes.
I know.
His whole thing is like his mum, like his mum wanted to retire and he's like, you can't let your brain go. He's like, your brain, it's not
Bro,
a chance.
You can't let your brain go. Your brain
That's
goes,
when you're in.
you go.
You're gone.
So hectic.
You
That's
need
why
to keep
Jiro's
yourself. It
99
doesn't
and
need to be
killing it.
work. Like it needs to be something that just keeps you occupied.
Okay, do you think you need a prevalent brand presence on social media to be successful in today's day and age?
No.
Level of success, like big success in today's day and age, yes. Jiro is in one of the most high traffic, foot traffic areas in bloody Tokyo, the train station. So he's got that leverage. Imagine his little sushi place being in the brinks of Bendigo.
You don't need a big no. So my point is that
He's not making that dosh.
the best products and the best brands and the best individuals in the world have people talk about them. Like they are talked about because of how unique they are, how good they are at something. And, you know, you don't need to have a strong social media presence if you have everybody else talking about you specifically. Social media is powerful, but just like we're talking about him now, this is his brand presence. We do the work for him because he's a master of his craft. And if you're good enough, you're the best in the world at something, people will talk about you. So
That's true.
I don't think you need to have a social media presence, but yeah, I do
That
think
is so true.
But to be the biggest
That is
today.
so true.
The
Because
best
people
brands
want
in
to
the
create
world-
content about people that are like doing amazing things. That's why people do like restaurant reviews.
exactly. Like if you're really good at something, the demand and the brand and the presence will find you. It's the same way that everybody right now thinks you need to build a personal brand. The reality is you don't. You need to leverage personal brands. You can, and they're a benefit to you and they can accelerate things. Like you can use influencers' personal brands to drive your ship
I agree with that.
and to grow. But yeah, I think like someone like him who's he's clearly a master like at what he does. Like people like the attention's finding him.
Well, the fact that we even found this article
Yeah.
is proof in case. But we're going to wrap it up there because we have gone down an absolute rabbit hole in this sushi topic. Friday afternoon, guys. Apologies.
Let's go back to working at 99. Are we going to go back to that topic? God almighty. We really went off. We really went off gear there.
No, it was good.
Thanks
No roll.
for tuning in, guys. Ciao.